Right now, Congress just passed one of the biggest housing bills in decades. Dozens of provisions, months of negotiation, two separate chambers, and a long road to the president's desk. But most people watching the headlines have no idea how any of that actually works. So today, we are going to break down exactly how a bill becomes a law in the United States, from the very first idea all the way to a president's signature. The whole system starts with an idea. According to the official U.S. government legislative process, a bill is a proposal for a new law or a change to an existing law. That idea can come from a sitting member of Congress, from a citizen petition, from an advocacy group, or even from the president. But here is the key rule. Only a member of Congress can actually introduce a bill. The president can suggest legislation and even send draft proposals to Capitol Hill, but the president cannot introduce a bill directly. Once a member of Congress decides to sponsor a piece of legislation, it gets formally introduced. In the House of Representatives, the bill is handed to the clerk. In the Senate, a member must gain recognition from the presiding officer to announce it. From that moment, the bill gets an official number. House bills receive an HR designation. Senate bills receive an S designation. That number tracks the bill through the entire process. Next comes what is arguably the most important and least talked about stage, the committee. According to Congress.gov, as soon as a bill is introduced, it is referred to a committee whose members will research, discuss, and make changes to it. Both the House and the Senate have various committees, each focused on specific policy areas, things like banking, foreign affairs, agriculture, or transportation. The bill goes to whichever committee has jurisdiction over its subject matter. Inside the committee, a lot happens that the public rarely sees. The committee can hold hearings, calling in experts, government officials, and members of the public to testify. It can request reports from agencies, and eventually it enters what is called a markup session, a meeting where committee members go through the bill line by line, propose amendments, debate changes, and vote on revisions. According to the Library of Congress, a markup concludes when the committee agrees by majority vote to report the bill to the full chamber. If the committee does not act on a bill at all, that bill is considered dead. Many bills never make it past this stage. If the committee approves the bill, it moves to the calendar, essentially a waiting list of legislation eligible for floor consideration. But getting on the calendar does not guarantee a vote. According to the Congressional Research Service, many bills placed on the calendar are never brought to the floor during a full 2-year session of Congress. Party leadership in both chambers plays a major role in deciding which bills actually get debated. When a bill does reach the floor, the House and Senate handle debate very differently. In the House of Representatives, rules and practices generally allow a numerical majority to process legislation relatively quickly. The House Rules Committee sets the terms for debate, how long members can speak, and which amendments can be offered. A simple majority of 218 out of 435 members is needed to pass a bill. The Senate is a different world. According to the U.S. Senate, a defining feature of floor consideration there is that no rule permits a simple majority to end debate and force a final vote on most questions. This is where the filibuster comes in. The filibuster is any tactic used to delay a vote, most famously, a senator holding the floor in extended debate. The Senate tradition of unlimited debate has allowed for its use for more than 2 centuries. The only way to cut off a filibuster is through a process called cloture, which requires 60 votes, a 3/5 supermajority, to end debate and move to a final vote. Once debate is actually ended, a bill only needs a simple majority of 51 votes to pass. But that 60-vote threshold to even get there is why so few bills make it through the Senate without broad bipartisan support. Now here's the part that often surprises people. Even if a bill passes one chamber of Congress, it is not done. The bill then moves to the other chamber and goes through the same basic process: committees, hearings, markup, floor debate, and a vote. And according to the Congressional Research Service, the enactment of law always requires both chambers to separately agree to the same bill in the same form before it can be presented to the president. That phrase, the same form, is critical, because here is what often happens in reality. The House passes one version of a bill. The Senate passes a different version with different provisions. Now what? 2 things can happen. First, the chambers can exchange amendments back and forth in what is sometimes called ping-pong, each side proposing changes until they land on identical text. Second, they can form a conference committee. A conference committee is a temporary joint group of House and Senate members, called conferees, drawn from the committees that handled the original bill. Their job is to negotiate a compromise. They hold informal negotiations and formal meetings, trading elements from each chamber's version until they can agree on a single unified text. That final agreed text is called the conference report, and it must then be approved by both the full House and the full Senate before moving forward. The recent housing bill is a real-world example of exactly this process. According to reports, the Senate passed an earlier version of the legislation in March, and the House passed its own version in May. They were different bills. Senate Banking and House Financial Services Committee leaders then worked out a bicameral compromise, and that final version passed both chambers with overwhelming margins, the Senate approving it 85-5, the House passing it 358-32, according to multiple news reports. Once both chambers agree on identical text, the bill is enrolled, prepared in its final official form, and sent to the president. The president then has several options. According to USA.gov, if the president signs the bill, it becomes a law. If the president takes no action for 10 days while Congress is still in session, it also automatically becomes law. But if Congress has already adjourned and the president takes no action, the bill is killed through what is known as a pocket veto, and Congress cannot override it. If the president actively vetoes the bill, formally rejecting it, the bill is sent back to Congress with the president's objections noted. At that point, Congress has one final option: override the veto, but that requires a 2/3 majority in both the House and the Senate simultaneously. According to the Library of Congress, it is quite unusual for law to be enacted over a presidential veto, which is why Congress typically must take the president's position into account throughout the entire drafting process. There is one more important tool worth knowing about: budget reconciliation. Reconciliation is a special fast-track process that Congress can use for certain budget-related legislation. According to the Congressional Research Service, a reconciliation bill in the Senate is limited to just 20 hours of debate, which means it cannot be filibustered and can pass with a simple majority of 51 votes, bypassing the usual 60-vote threshold. It is a powerful mechanism, but it comes with constraints. Under what is known as the Byrd Rule, reconciliation bills cannot include provisions that are unrelated to federal spending, revenue, or the debt limit. So when you add it all up, here is the full journey. An idea becomes a draft, a member sponsors it, it is introduced and numbered, assigned to a committee, studied and revised in hearings and markup sessions, voted out of committee, scheduled for the floor, debated and amended, voted on in the first chamber, then sent to the second chamber, where the entire process repeats. If the two chambers pass different versions, they negotiate a compromise. Both chambers approve the same final text. The enrolled bill goes to the president. The president signs or it becomes law without a signature, or the president vetoes it and Congress either overrides or the bill is finished. According to one analysis from the Congressional Research Service, by 2010, only about 2.8% of all bills introduced in the Senate were eventually enacted into law. The legislative process is designed to be deliberate and difficult by design, a reflection of the constitutional framework that distributes power across two chambers, 535 elected lawmakers, and the executive branch. With the landmark housing bill now heading to the president's desk, the next thing to watch is whether it receives a signature and how long it takes before the provisions inside it begin to reshape housing markets across the country. Follow this channel for daily updates as that story and others like it continue to develop.